Welcome, horror fans, to another spine-chilling episode of our Reddit Scary Story series. Tonight, we dive deep into two terrifying tales from the dark corners of the internet that will keep you up at night. So, turn off the lights, grab your favorite blanket, and get ready to hear some truly unsettling stories that will make you question what's lurking in the shadows. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a terrifying update. Now, let's get into it. The first story is about someone who died for 6 minutes and came back with a shocking truth. Heaven isn't what we think. Get ready. This one will make you question everything. In 2003, when I was 15 years old, my heart stopped for 6 minutes. It happened on an ordinary afternoon, at the point in my daily routine when I walked home from the bus stop. In the 4 blocks between the corner where I hopped off the bus and my front door, I started to feel nauseous. It came on suddenly, without warning. I'd felt just fine all day. Ate a lunch of Bosco sticks and marinara sauce, something I'd eaten hundreds of times throughout high school. Before I had an opportunity to consider alternative causes, I broke out in a cold sweat. Then I felt the curious flutter in my chest. My heart slipped into what I later learned was an episode of ventricular fibrillation. I became breathless and collapsed. What happened next has been told to me after the fact. I apparently sprawled in the road, where a woman driving a hatchback nearly crushed my skull beneath her tires. Instead, she screeched to a halt, tried to rouse me, then dialed emergency services when she failed to do so. EMS arrived to discover my heart had stopped beating. I was dead, technically. They transported my body to the hospital, and somewhere along the way, managed to shock my ticker back to life. Thus began a harrowing, weeks-long journey through the American healthcare system that led eventually to an ablation, pacemaker, and mountains of debt my family's still dealing with. But my heart's all right. And thankfully it is, because what I learned that day has taught me never to thank God for anything. Because for those 6 minutes, as my lifeless body traveled across the city, accompanied by 2 paramedics working tirelessly to revive me, my soul transcended our world to visit the hereafter. During my visit, I learned things about our universe that I wish I hadn't. Perhaps in sharing my story, I might help our species prepare for what comes after we expire. It began with light, blinding, white, pervasive. It bathed me, calmed me. It was everything they tell you about, beatific, welcoming, the stuff of spiritual experiences. I had the distinct feeling of ascent, like the light was lifting me skyward. I passed through several sets of gates, which my dizzied consciousness hardly registered. Upon reflection, I don't believe they were physical in any sense, and yet I recall the feeling of admittance, as if they might have prevented me from rising had they remained closed. In any event, I arrived in a place without dimension, a place beyond reality. It only made sense while I occupied it. I don't believe a corporeal being can make sense of the astral plane. Something about its intangible existence defies translation. So what I came away with were more impressions than images. I was not alone. Several life forces enclosed me upon my arrival. At first, because of my Christian upbringing, I believed them to be angels. In my incorporeal form, I made the spiritually equivalent gesture of opening my arms, anticipating their embrace. Instead, I felt myself shackled by their powers, like a collared dog. Humiliation and terror came over me. These were not the ethereal beings I'd been led to believe await us. These were cruel, unsympathetic overlords by whom I was fettered. Why, I thought, my soul wailing like a petulant child. Something like laughter returned, but it was cold, mocking. Thoughts floated into my consciousness like birds winging in and out of sight. They delivered some horrifying truths about existence that I'll do my best to relay to you now. Our universe, like many others running parallel to it, contains a pittance of the total energy in existence. It is a farm used to produce souls, which only arise in the precise conditions found in our cosmos. When you hear scientists talk about the improbability of the existence of our Goldilocks universe, it's because they don't actually come into being spontaneously. They're designed. and the hands that craft them are not benevolent gods, but rapacious beings with little care for the creatures they create. Our ultimate purpose, I learned in the custody of the spirits that shackled me, was to ripen until we were ready to serve them on their higher plane. The Big Bang gave birth to the universe to give rise to life to eventuate in humanity, a sufficiently conscious organism that may be harvested for use as slaves on a higher plane, where time and space dissolve into an eternity we spend in servitude. 6 minutes in heaven felt like a lifetime, which I spent amusing what I perceived to be a childlike spirit with a penchant for psychologically distressing manipulation. It batted me around like a cat with a caught mouse, reveling in the pain it produced. Physical discomforts we imagine hell inflicting upon us pale in comparison to the torture of soul pain. Loss of a loved one comes closest, that piercing emotional damage resulting from trauma. When it became clear my time had not yet expired on Earth and I was to return, I was told not to reveal their existence to the rest of my kind. My reward, they communicated to me, would be a marginally improved station among the slave population. Alternatively, if I managed to convince others of their existence, new horrors would await me when I returned. I can't imagine anything worse than what I experienced, subsumed beneath an ineffable grief and torment. For weeks, I tried to explain to anyone who would listen what I experienced. Everyone told me Lyd suffered a very serious and traumatic experience for a young man, that the event left scars on my psyche as well as my heart. I gave up trying to convince them. I slowly began to convince myself that what they'd told me was true. Lyd simply imagined it, a death dream, as it were. The mind reckoning with its own imminent demise, trying to make sense of the experience. Then I met someone who claimed to have met God. This was a few years later, when the author of a non-fiction book recounting their near-death experience visited my hometown. I won't reveal the author's name as I don't want to invite a lawsuit, which I'm sure he'd launch against me if he read that'll have besmirched him. I attended a reading, and afterward confronted him about his tale. I looked him in the eye and asked if he really met God, something I'm sure he's dealt with hundreds of times. He smiled and nodded, assuring me that yes, God is real and is filled with love. On a lark, I decided to tell him that I knew the truth, that slavery awaits us all. A flicker in his gaze betrayed his knowledge of the fact. He really had died and visited the afterlife, but lied about it in his book. Because he knew. He knew the truth of heaven, the horrible place our souls are bound for. The second story is about someone who woke up to find 5 creepy photos on their phone that they didn't take. The mystery behind these photos will leave you on the edge of your seat. I woke up this morning to find my phone lying on my nightstand, exactly where Elle had left it. But something was off. The screen was on, the camera roll open. At first, I thought Elle had accidentally unlocked it in my sleep, but as I scrolled through the photos, my stomach dropped. There were 5 new pictures. I didn't take them. The first photo was of me, asleep in my bed. It was dimly lit, the glow of my phone's screen casting faint shadows across the room. I could see myself lying there, my mouth slightly open, my hand dangling off the edge of the bed. The angle was all wrong. Someone had taken this photo while I was sleeping. I felt a chill creep up my spine, but I told myself it had to be some kind of accident. A glitch, maybe. I swiped to the second photo, hoping for an explanation. This one was closer. A close-up of my face, just inches away. My eyes were shut, but the rest of the photo sent a jolt of fear through me. Behind me, in the reflection of the mirror on my dresser, there was a shadow. It wasn't a clear figure, but it was there, something dark, humanoid, but warped and wrong. I dropped the phone on my bed, my hands trembling. My heart was pounding as I sat there, staring at the screen. It had to be a prank, I thought. Someone hacked my phone or broke in during the night. I checked every door and window. They were all locked from the inside. Nothing was out of place. I wanted to call the police, but what could I say? That my phone took pictures of me while I was asleep. I tried to brush it off as some bizarre glitch, but deep down, I knew better. I waited until morning to look at the rest. The third photo made my blood run cold. It was taken from the hallway outside my bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, I could see myself lying in bed. But this time, the reflection in the glass frame on the wall showed a shadowy figure standing in the room. It was tall, unnaturally so, with a head that tilted sharply to one side. I stared at the image, trying to process what I was seeing. There was no way someone could have been in my house without me hearing them, unless they still were. The fourth photo was worse. It was me again, still asleep. But now the shadow wasn't in the reflection. It was standing right next to my bed. The face was blurred, but its outline was clear, an impossibly long figure looming over me. I couldn't breathe. My skin prickled as if something were watching me. I clutched the phone, dreading what the last photo might show. With trembling hands, I swiped to the fifth image. It wasn't of me. It was a screenshot of my phone's home screen. The clock read 3 a.m., the battery at 67%, exactly as it was at that moment. Before I could process it, the screen went black. Then I heard it, the faint click of a camera shutter, from somewhere inside the room. Well, that's it for today's terrifying tales. What do you think? Could these stories be true, or are they just nightmares come to life? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want more creepy stories like these, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones you can't see.